Welcome to Vocalize. In this video, I am going to be modeling an adapted math worksheet. This worksheet was adapted for my daughter, and so I'm going to be sharing those adaptations, her adaptations, with you. My daughter has Rett syndrome, so she is nonverbal and totally dependent on AAC for communication, as well as she has very little functional and independent hand use. She is 4 years old and in a mainstream pre-kindergarten this year, and her teacher doesn't have a lot of experience with special education and has never worked with AAC of any kind before. So she has been great about allowing me to walk alongside her and help her make the adaptations for my daughter. She and I both feel that I am qualified to do that, not just because I'm mom and I know my daughter best and I'm trained in all of her AAC, but also because I do have my degree in early childhood education. Let me say that, once again, this lesson is adapted for my daughter. This is what worked for her, but every lesson should be individualized. So this might not exactly work for your student, but you can still get, hopefully glean some ideas on how to maybe make adaptations for your student. Alrighty, so I'll pull this off here and show you. So this is the math worksheet that my daughter was working on pre-kindergarten. It is a worksheet to practice the number 3. When adapting, you want to go through and just state all of the tools that are going to be needed to make this worksheet doable for the student. So for this worksheet, because it is a worksheet, a paper, my daughter sits in her activity chair, and so she's able to come up to the table, but she is strapped in and she's not able to really lean forward or have much range of motion. So we use a wedge or a slanted clipboard and put her worksheets on there. So it just makes it a little bit more visible to my daughter, as well as she doesn't have to reach as far. We also tape the paper onto the wedge or the slanted clipboard so that it doesn't move around. Like I said, my daughter doesn't have great hand use, so her grasp, she can't maintain grasp. So one tool is an easy hold. It just wraps over the hand like this, and the writing utensil would go through. My daughter can't actually use the easy holds because it cuts off the circulation in her hand. So we just use a hair scrunchie. It does the exact same thing. So that's something we need anytime she's has to purposely use her hands. And then for this particular activity as well, I need number cards and some extra pieces of paper. And then I also want to state up front when making these adaptations, and I'm typing that, I want to state up front which AAC are going to be used. And for this particular activity, we're going to be using partner-assisted scanning, eye pointing, and the yes-no board. So her teacher, her one-on-one, the classroom aide, would know that my daughter would need to have her yes-no board accessible as well. Okay, so once I start adapting an activity, I want to determine what is priority within that activity. What is the goal and the purpose there? So with this activity, this worksheet that is practicing 3s, we have 3 different sections here. And this bottom part here is counting, so it's testing my daughter's knowledge of 3, like the concept of 3 and that it's a quantity. And this middle part here is finding a circle 3, so she's identifying that she knows what a 3 looks like and recognizes that. And the top here is tracing the 3. So for my daughter, because she has apraxia, because it just takes extra time when using AAC, I want to be able to really pick the parts of this worksheet that she needed to focus on, and she should not be rushed through. And for me, I really felt that was the bottom part here, the counting. Her teacher and I decided, okay, let's allow her to do this entire bottom part first. If and when she finishes that, then she can move up to the fine and circle part. And lastly, if she has time, she'll go up to trace, which tracing for my daughter is pretty much just busy work since she does not have that independent hand use. Okay, so I'm going to go through here and I'm going to model what it would look like to be working with my daughter. I'm going to pretend that she's next to me. And then after I model a few of these, then I'll go back through and I'll point out some of the things that I did. So, okay, so it says count. If you count 3, color it. If you count any other number, X it out. Okay, so as I'm pointing at these pencils here, I want you to count in your head. Okay, so count the pencils as I point to them. Ready? Okay, let's do that again. Count in your head while I point. Okay, how many pencils did you count? Did you count 3 pencils, 4 pencils, or 5 pencils? 3, 4, or 5. How many pencils did you count? 4. Did you count 4 pencils? Yes, you did. Yeah, good job. Yep, there are 4 pencils there. Okay, so 4 is not a 3, so we're going to go ahead and X it out. All right, now we're going to move on to the next one. So count in your head while I point to the markers. Okay, let's do that again. Count in your head while I point. Okay, how many markers did you count? Did you count 1, 3, or 5? Did you count 1 marker, 3 markers, or 5 markers? 3. Good job. Yep. There are 3 markers, so we're going to go ahead and color it in. Let's color. All right. Now count in your head as I point to this one. All right, we're going to do that again. Ready? Okay, that time. How many crayons did you count? 1, 2, or 3? 1 crayon, 2 crayons, or 3 crayons? 1, right. Good job. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and X that out because that is not a 3. Okay, so some things I did there. So I told my daughter to count in her head because obviously she can't count out loud, and if you work with little ones, that's something they do that helps them stay focused, to kind of hear the numbers, to say the numbers. So telling her to count in her head is telling her to do the same thing that everyone else is doing the way she can do it. Okay, so counting in her head, notice that I was quiet. I did not count aloud, because if I did count aloud, then I'm doing the work for her. Okay, as I pointed, I was deliberately picking up my finger and tapping it down so that she had the input not only of my finger touching, but she also had the sound of it hitting the paper. Another thing you could do is using a marker or a highlighter, and you could be touching to each thing, making a mark as you go, and that just gives some extra input with the pointing. And then notice that I went through each one twice, since my daughter has to focus and be looking in order to count. Sometimes her body doesn't allow her to do that, and there's a distraction over that way, and she looks away. Her head all of a sudden gets really heavy, and she starts to droop, and she loses sight, whatever it may be. I run through it a second time so that she has the ability to, if she missed a part of it the first time, she can double check the second time. All right. So after I had her count in her head, then I presented her with 3 card options. In presenting the cards, I presented them in numerical order. So no matter which 3 numbers they were, I put them in numerical order each time. And so I read them as I presented them, and then I went through and I read them a second time, pointing to them all in a row. And then I allowed her to eye point, and then I confirmed her answer with her and used hand over hand to either X out or color. All right, so moving up to this next portion of find and circle. Okay, so in this section, there are a lot of numbers, and I want you to find the number 3, okay? All right, so with these 4 numbers, do you see any number 3s? Yes? Okay, so are either of these 2 numbers the number 3? No, they're not. Good job. What about these 2 numbers? Are either of them the number 3? Yes. Good. Is this the number 3? No. Is this the number 3? Yes, it is. Good job. Okay, so we're going to circle it. All right, let's move on to a new group of numbers. Okay. So we have a new group of numbers. Do you see the number 3 anywhere? Yes. Okay. Are either of those 2 the number 3? No. What about them? Are either of those numbers the number 3? Yes. Is this one the number 3? Nope. You're right. Good job. Is this the number 3? Yes, it is. Good job. Okay, let's circle it. All right, so in that section, there are a lot of numbers. They're small. They're very close together. So to just make it easier to focus, I broke it down into smaller groups using these papers to block out everything else. So I broke it into a group of 4 and started with a yes/no question. Do you see the number 3? Because if there hadn't been a number 3 in that group, in that step, then in one question we were able to eliminate 4 numbers and move on. But if she identified, yes, there is a 3, then break it into 2 smaller groups of just 2. And then if she identifies, yes, there is a 3 within that smaller group, then you go one-on-one with a yes and no. Is this the number 3? Is this the number 3? And then the top part with the tracing is pretty simple, just hand over hand. All right, so that is how I adapted this worksheet for my daughter. Hopefully it can maybe give you some ideas on what a similar math worksheet might look like for your student and adapting it for them. So again, this one worksheet, though my daughter is nonverbal, though she isn't able to use her hands, she is totally able to do this worksheet, and it just takes a matter of giving her the right tools and the amount of time. If you know that your student is going to struggle to complete this much work, or if you know that they're going to be rushed because this activity is only allotted a certain number of time or whatever, then you can certainly limit and be like, okay, we're only going to do 4 of this count section. We're only going to identify half of these numbers, and we're only going to trace 2 at the top or something like that, and just go in with, because that's an adaptation of limiting. So, all right, this is one example of just one thing that my daughter has done in school. It is early in the school year, and I hope to model many more activities for you from her pre-kindergarten classroom as the year progresses. So I'll be on the lookout for those videos. All right, thank you.